Into the Nexus is a production of amove.tv. Bookmark Amove TV for other great video games and esports podcasts. Into the Nexus is sponsored by listeners like you via patreon.com/ITN. Welcome back, everybody, to Into the Nexus, the podcast all about Heroes of the Storm and Nexuses. I'm your Weinzierl, and joining me, as always, is Kyle Fergusson. And announcement at the top of the show, Jeff Kanata sadly will not be joining us today, as originally announced if you follow at ITNcast on Twitter, as he's being an awesome get to see movies early reviewer guy, and he's at a screening of Blade Runner at the moment, making me extremely jealous because I cannot wait to see that movie. And he didn't know that it was 3 hours long, and it's 3 hours long. It's a long movie, so he'll be finishing it up right about now-ish, but then he has to get home, and he's also a dad and a husband. And long story short, Jeff should be joining us next week. And he has offered to make 2 appearances in October, should it call for that. So,
well, sweet. I'm excited to hear how his placements went. But we got a lot to talk about today. How are you doing, Garrett? How's your games been? I'm
doing great. But if you want to know about heroes, I'm not doing great. I talked about this with Dunk On. You knew last week how things ended, and the answer was not well, and it hasn't been getting any better. Actually, it's been getting worse. I've been having a very, very rough time with a very great game.
A lot of people are. And some people have, launched to Masters, and people say Masters is broken now, or what have you. Some people have climbed, others have fallen. I was on the fall train this week. I finished up my placements. First day, went 4-1. Feeling good. Got to see the Diamond 1, so even pushing past Diamond 3 in that. But my second day was a 1-4, so reverse. 3 losses in a row at the very end, and that took me all the way to Plat 1.
And that was on your second half?
The system quite a bit.
That was on your second half.
Yeah.
Your latter half were the losses, and you still fell 3 leagues? Or 3 ranks? That would be
from Diamond 1 to Plat 1, so
a full set of ranks.
Yeah.
Even though we got a post from Blizz Travis this past week reiterating the fact that your first half of the games have a greater sway than the latter half of the games, and yet I was Plat 4, went 0-5 to open up, then won my back half games. No, 4. So I went 6 and 4 in my placements, but 5 of those losses were the first 5 games, and I went down significantly less amount of ranks. No, I guess I went down 4 ranks and you went down 5, so I guess we're still pretty close to each other, but if what Blizz Travis was saying was useful information, I should have fallen even further since I went on a loss streak on the first half of my placement games.
Well, it's important to note, too, at this point. One, I'm excited as heck, frankly. I know I'm a little still vacation happy, so I'm a little odd out there. But I did the entire last season as a meta player, as a meta stream. It was all Anubaraks and Valas. And, I got to the Diamond 2. I got to the Diamond 2 that I've gotten to every other season, except for the one I got Masters with during the Tychus spree. And the first thing you need to do right now is go into the game, open your profile, click statistics, and find the drop-down menu that houses all the different seasons, and just click through them. We know from Blizzard that MMR and rank are 2 very different things. And that's a bit sad when it comes to placements, because ultimately your MMR is staying about the same during these things. It is merely an opportunity for you to perhaps get lucky or show off your brand new skills in an environment. Let's say you went and played a bunch of League and then came back. Maybe you trained in a different environment for MOBAs and got better here in Heroes. That allows you to have an inflated or deflated rank number while your MMR is staying about the same.
Okay. All right.
But your rank is little cubbies. So they walk up and they have a whole basket of MMR 2000s and 100, whatever. And so they throw them in all little boxes, and each box has its own pile of 2100 in it. And that's the group of MMR you are playing with. So if I were to place Masters, I would not play along the side of Dunk Train, who has a much higher MMR. We would both be in that environment, but we wouldn't be in the same thing. It's a bit different with Grandmasters because it's really about inflated wins and points. And those guys you have to grind for naturally by playing that much. You're going to change your MMR. So one of the first things to do is take a look at those previous seasons and just breathe it and be like, okay, this is fine. This is where I'm going to be battling it out. This is a training ground perhaps for me. And rhythmically throughout previous seasons, I've always escaped from this new place it put me. It's really sad for people who work really hard to climb with the time they have. For instance, like Gorath, who I get to play with on the weekends. He always gets to Diamond 5 at the very least, but they always throw him back in Plat 5 every season. That sort of rewind is painful, naturally.
Yeah, and in Travis's post, he lists so many different factors, all of the different variances that go into calculating your MMR, calculating your placement, so on and so forth. But it just seems strange, and granted, not everyone is having this outcome, but it seems strange when someone is climbing, like the example of Gorath you gave, and then for them to just fall. I don't.
So you reset them back during the placement time, and even odder that a 5-5 like I experienced was a negative reset back to what is perhaps my pure played for a long time alpha MMR.
Right. Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. Like it would make more sense to me if, say, you went from Diamond 1 down to Diamond 5 and then after placements in a new season ended up in Plat 5 versus starting in Plat 5, climbing to Diamond 1 and then them just ripping the rug out from underneath you and setting you back down to where you were before. That is the one that, granted, Travis has given us a smorgasbord of asterisks but also in this situation, but still, it's weird. It's a strange narrative, and it's also not it's not a clear through line either, because you talk to other people with who had you guys could have been in the same league, had the same placements, like your win rate, and even whether it was on the front half of it or the back half of it, and still end up in different leagues. So it's just,
hey, ultimately you go the same distance in Fast and the Furious, but too soon, kid. You pop the nitros in your early games, but your late games you go a little flat. The real good thing though for me and every time they put me in Plat, I have a great time. It's fun. I throw the meta away. I start playing nothing but my faves. I'm honestly looking at Leoric and like Alarak right now because I just want to have a darn good time. I'm going to get back on the Zul Jin train. Because you're in that lower cubby, you are in the losers, if you will, of your MMR. So your MMR, it wants to put you at that like Plat 5 Gold 1 period, but now you're lower than that. So you can use this as a training ground opportunity to up your aggression greatly. Just start going. People get tilted in quick match. Bizarre. It's strange. Of course, the Anubarak's new. It's quick match. That is you got to have two kinds of practice. You have your effective practice, what you're going to execute with people around. And then it's really important that you take time by yourself in this game, depending on the groups of friends you play with, to just straight up do stupid things. And I think you've experienced that a bit with me over the last 2 weeks as we've played some games together, and some of my boss calls are very questionable to you. But they're extreme cases where we're losing that game and I'm coming up with ways to get us back in.
They're actually not as questionable as they would have been before you went away. Because I had that episode with Dunk Train, sat down with him, had him look at my play, and one of the things he mentioned in a game where in his opinion I was playing correctly but we still weren't winning, that's when he said, just go for the Hail Marys. Go for the weird things because playing by the book isn't getting it done.
This is where it can be very difficult to be streaming these moments too, where you're saying, let's at least try. There's not really a chance we're going to successfully win this boss fight, but there's no keep. It's going to go core if we lose. So let's just see what happens.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. My biggest issue at the moment is social, but that's unhelpful. So,
well, and you are perhaps trained from our previous season together. We got to play alongside some masters, some really good players. Our after-show participants, the patrons, they're darn good too. And they're aware of the meta enough and esports enough to pick a role, and it's often a very strong role. It's not going to be Leoric just tanking for you. They're going to pick an ETC for us. So we get very spoiled in that environment. And when you were in that environment, we got you placed into Diamond 3. Mm-hmm. So you play very effectively with the vast amount of knowledge that you've gathered over the course of playing this game. The nuance week to week with balance changes and how Ana and Lily combine to be your supports and how that changes your play, that's what takes the real chunky time, those hours you got to put in.
No, yeah, you're absolutely correct. And that was something I struggled with today in a game. In case anyone's wondering why Kyle pulled that specific combination of heroes out of a hat, it wasn't. It was out of a game that we played a few hours ago. But more on Ana later.
So to that note, first thing we need to do here is check out your statistics, realize where your usual MMR is and where you usually climb to, and it can often be a very calming thing. Next, we need to change the way we're doing Merc camps. Lane clear is abundant. There's lots of Asmodans, there's lots of Jaina's, and people like you and me that became very good at working the map during previous seasons and playing these more solo styles, often based around taking timely Merc camps and then participating in the nearby team fight, is gone. Lane clear is a little too fast at the moment. So you have to actually take the Merc camp during that objective to make a choice, which we've always done. But also, you can't really even do it if there's an Asmodan, right? The elements are powerful in play. And that sort of style isn't going to work right now when we're doing these more aggressive climbs. We get back up to Diamond and Masters above, maybe we can start doing those timely things again. But it's really about participating in the real team fights, then making a Merc camp equation for the enemy side to decide between that quick Merc camp grab after the successful kill and the objective. Haunted Mines win the fight first, then the Merc camp, then the basement. And that's really difficult, and it's constantly ebb and flowing.
And the good thing about everything you just said is you have that, you can start to see that information. It depends on where your pick is before you decide on who you're going to play and what role you are going to fulfill. So even though you're here saying at the moment the power level of mercenaries is down because we have all finally caught up with the meta saying lane clear is valuable. However, if you see the enemy draft going in a way where they do not have a lot of lane clear, cool. You now make an informed decision to go grab a hero that can add mercenaries to the map easily.
It also has a lot to do with quests right now. If a team has the level lead, it means they've been in comfortable positions, which means they've completed their quests faster. So the damage, the lane clear on someone like Alarak, who is on the winning team, is way, way higher than the losing team Alarak if you completely remove levels because of that quest now. So the elements changed in play. So focus on yourself here. So no longer are we doing these cute Merc solo things. What you really need to do is you and the powers you bring. So what happens when you outpush somebody? What happens when you get to the gate? Those are the questions you need to answer yourself right now before heading back into Hero League. You outpush your enemy. Can you take a Merc camp? Maybe. Should you go join a team fight, do a gank? Which one is it, based on who you are?
And based on the state of the game at that very moment.
Exactly. And that takes play time. Here's something, though, I really want you to think about because it'll put you into a mindset that allows you to evolve over the course of the game because you're playing a lot of Sonya, and that build has been the same for a long time now. I find this with Lilies too, but maybe it's just because of the way my wife plays. But Lilies are very bullheaded often. I'm going to blind you and I'll get in your face and I'm top damage Lily. Like, what are you going to do about it? And when they start to lose, they always overextend because it's just what they do. It's what they've been doing all game. So find those connections, and it's really easy to do in our newer heroes like Leoric or Jaina. There's really nice situational levels, and decide based on the map you're on what your power spike is going to be and how you're going to mess with the enemy side. So level 1, Leoric, you get to choose between 3 different types of survivability. One is based on hitting heroes with a skeleton swing. Another is a button and based on getting regen globes. And one is based on minions dying around you. If you're in a different, depending on your map there, what if you're on Dragonshire bottom lane, the minions are clashing on top of you and you're on the point, but in range to regenerate. First surprise number one, you're now in their heads. Maybe you take the activatable regeneration and you win Battlefield Eternity. 2 orbs drop. You just reduce the cooldown of that first aid ability. That's another surprise. And then we're looking for those mid-late game surprises, not heroics. Everyone expects to look at heroics and then make a choice based on that. But I'm talking about things like Ominous Wraith. If I wraith through you as a ghost, you deal 50% less damage for 4 seconds. Like, this is the kind of impact you need to have to climb hard. Very powerful surprises. What about that level 20 Tyrande that reduces damage by 40%? Well, it's a level 20. Are you going to get to that on Haunted Mines? Maybe not. That's a Warhead Junction pick now.
All good points. Is that like I need to rethink what I'm bringing to the table? I will fight you till I'm blue in the face on Sonya, though, because it's the only hero I'm winning with in Hero League at the moment.
Oh, and I'm not saying abandon Sonya. Merely that each one of those steps, when you get Spell Shield or you get one of your many shields, or Wrath of the Berserker, start soaking CCs. Really take advantage of every piece of the text and every if statement that it has to have the biggest, most surprising impact.
I agree. Well, awesome. You want to get into the news?
Let's do that.
Rad. All right, let's do it.
We're on, boys! Ha-ha! Let's liven up this place!
The moment is upon us.
Yes, I'd mana tap that.
So, Anna's out. That's the big news this week. We're not going to go through talent by talent, ability by ability. We already did that. But she's out. She's here now. Kyle, you've been playing a lot of her, no matter how many times your friend asks you not to.
She's fun, man. It's true. I do feel like, bringing the chips to the party. I didn't do a lot of work.
Wait, I feel like you're bringing potatoes and a deep fryer and your own potato, like your cutting devices to make your own potato chips, and you're making them from scratch when you could have played Uther Malfurion or Rhaegar and brought ready-made chips where you didn't need to put in as much effort and also had better output.
I may go one further and say that I only brought the powdered onion dip mix. And I'm expecting you guys to make everything else around me happen. But in that situation where we have the cream cheese or what it was, sour cream, and oh my goodness, you just take it and you dump it and then you stir it. It's amazing. It's been a long time. It does work, and it works really well. There is an opportunity for her, and it's basically as an anti-support, which is so weird because it feels like now Blizzard's saying, everybody on the double support train, and I'm sitting here like, but you just kicked Uther off as the bus driver. Well, do we want to ride this? And they're like, yeah, it's a good ride now. I'm like, all you did was remove Uther, and they're like, it's good to go.
We're all right. It's fine.
Yeah,
here's another quarter support. You're gonna need something else.
It's becoming abundantly clear that using your grenade offensively, like we talked about last week, is the way to go. That's why you drafted Ana over Tyrande. If you want Tyrande, take Tyrande. If you're actually going to turn off heals in the game, and you need some big heals. You need like Stu-Cop pathogens, which are kind of hard because it's just that little fart in the air. Lily cups, if that ever happens in a game, or Tranquility, not something you'd bank on in the draft. Those are great opportunities for a grenade. So seeing that excuse on the enemy side, very empowering.
Absolutely. I mean, and also it's a safe bet in your lower leagues to just throw it on something like a mark, like you would anything else that would lower armor or whatever. What you see being targeted to sop up whatever healing will be coming in.
And it could be a super assassin. It could be Malthael diving, and he has double support. That's a good option. He's healing himself too. Illidan as well. So there are places for this. The Annas that I experienced in my placements were all losses. They wanted to go Eye of Horus, and that was kind of odd.
I'm no longer in placements, but every single Hero League game I played this week where Ana was picked was a loss as well.
She's got some cute moves. Nano Boost works on so many people. Great. Johanna, making her this vacuum machine, Malthael. Doesn't really work on some people. Like, you'll end up boosting an Arthas, and you're like, oh, okay. But, any spellcaster's great.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I feel... I'm going to go back to what Dunk was talking about. I think communication is in order. If I'm not... what I'm trying to stay away from, despite my knee-jerk reaction, is telling people don't play Ana if you want to play Ana. But talk to your team. Make sure that they understand what they have to do to make Ana work. And make peace of the fact that not everyone's going to be ready to make that work, or will understand how to make it work, or be able to fill the particular puzzle pieces that will need to be filled to make it work.
I found that for Ana, going aim down sights at level 4 makes her a greater contribution. And there's some cute stuff at 4. I really like Overdose for my aggressive build that, why were we running this instead of Tyrande kind of problem. With aim down sights, you are increasing your sight radius by 100% while getting that bonus attack speed and reducing your movement by 20%. Well, guess what? You can just hang out in this darn thing because you're never going to want to be in front anyway. Be late to the party a little bit so you're already in the back. But with increased sight means that you gain some immunity, some resistance to the main problem Ana has, which is dive. If people dive you, there's probably other people around you who are going to knee-jerk react to save you, ruining the sleep you just put on that gray mane who got in your face. And you're going to explode. But increasing that sight range, kind of like Tassadar, negates the gank, the dive in the first place. And once we start heading down that road, things get way more interesting.
I like that that's what you're focusing on as well, by the way. You're saying something is a counter that you yourself have to execute upon. Yes, aim down sights is basically passive once you activate it, but to get value from it, you need to do something with the information that it is providing to you. I feel very often a lot of the weight is put on rock, paper, scissors counters in this game, and we don't talk as much about, I don't know what I would call it, an active counter.
Yeah, so well, it's information. You're providing a bunch of information, and as I've learned from Reddit specifically, people have to read it in order to actually do something with it.
Well, yes.
There's no... The too long didn't read of Power Slide is way easier than anything on a sporting.
Yes. No, absolutely. Or they can just listen to you on this podcast.
That's true. You're ready to go. I wouldn't suggest it. I think Debilitating Dart is probably one of the better, but 7, 13 are still really situational. You can take 20 to increase that attack range more off of your aim down sights. There's some really cute stuff in here. Biggest problem I see with her is that Nano Boost has almost no communication. Flashing blue with little lightning bolts outside of voice comms isn't going to get anybody to react.
I need screen edge effects, man. You're right. Like, you were telling me it was on me, and I was thinking to myself, are you sure?
It's short. It comes off cooldown really fast. It's 8 seconds long, but where's the communication, I guess? Plus, it is rather short range, so a lot of this is the stumble through of Malthael making what is an okay engage, but he's now beyond my range. I'm in the back 20% slow movement speed, have to deactivate that now, go on 10-second cooldown, expose myself, if you will, and finally get off that on the end of his ability.
Still giggling because I'm 5. Yeah, and again, I stand by my comments last week. I find Ana's kit to be extremely strong, to definitely look like something that has come out later in Heroes of the Storm cycle. She looks like lessons learned. They took some risks. I think they paid off. I very much like her. I just think you're working harder than you have to right now, trying to make Ana work.
And that's partially by design. Sleep Dart is mega easy to cancel. It's tough to hit on that slower fly speed. It's not visual like Cocoon, so those little Z's, maybe it's just the blue problem, I'm not sure, but there's something that's not being communicated there where we can instantly tell in our heads, like, this is a really powerful basic ability 4-second sleep. Oh my goodness. 3-second sleep.
Yeah, absolutely. And you and I did have a chance to play some games today where you were on Ana and I was on comms. And granted, I was tilted from games earlier in the week and I just wanted you to play anything but Ana. But I did think that she was significantly more effective with one-to-one communication, which I think is true of every hero in this game. But I think it's a lot more noticeable with a hero like Ana.
Definitely. And then we get into things like, Medivh, who, when voice comms come into this game, could launch into crazed stardom.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. Yeah, no. I think I might put Ana right up there with Medivh. Just, for example, back to the sleep dart, I was on Arthas, you were on Ana. When you weren't communicating your sleep dart, guess what was happening? My aura would instantly cancel the sleep dart. But the second you started saying, sleep dart on X, I stood still for a second, waited until you put them to sleep. When they woke up, guess who got howling blasted?
It's also practice for me, right? Once we put me on tank and we played that sweet ETC Tychus game, I was shot calling the walls off because that's what I'm used to in Team League. I don't shot call from support because I go overreactionary.
That was the single greatest game of Heroes I have played in probably 3 weeks.
There are some shocking statistics right now. Again, these are coming from HOTS logs, but there are some people on their way out. Kel'Thuzad and both Johanna fell 5% during this patch.
I don't even know what to attribute that to.
Probius, I think Johanna is just people having fun, but Probius is up 8%, and you can basically say, well, that's Volskaya.
Yes, 100%. I've only played one Volskaya against a Probius, and it's terrifying. Especially if not the treadmills. Well, I guess you call them treadmills. The conveyor belts are not in your favor, where they do not aid in your escape from the platform. No. Probius just gets so much value.
Actually, I haven't checked if Johanna's unstoppable doesn't matter on the treadmills. You come to a full-blown stop if you're going the wrong way on those things.
Unless you're mounted, and then it's the slowest mounted movement speed ever.
Yeah, I bring that up because some of the things that we might pair with Ana might be out right now too. Slower moving heroes are out, and getting dove is always in, particularly by sustain attackers.
Yeah. Like if your front line is Arthas and Diablo, you're probably landing that heal.
Hey, I found a sweet strategy this week. Dance. It doesn't cost you anything.
Wiggle.
It won't. Just dance.
Literally dance emote.
Yeah, dance. If you want an Ana heal, dance for me. Because I will know that you are going to be stationary for some period of time. Now, you can break it at any point and make me miss, but it was actually really, really helpful.
Okay, so that's helpful when nothing else is happening. What about when things are happening?
But then you should aim for the person who's most likely to stand still for it.
I thought the answer was position yourself in a way that doesn't help the game in any other way other than Ana actually landing a dart on you and not on someone else on your team.
Now we're going down that road of everybody made this harder for me. What's wrong with you, right?
Yes, I'm getting salty. Just want to get that in. I'm like, yeah, or I could just stand behind my tank and not do damage because I'm a melee hero, because I wanted that heal.
And you could have added an Uther, which increased the effectiveness of all of our healing rather than giving us an Ana. All those things are very real.
You need another healer, is what it really boils down to. And
if we want to go beyond that, and we're talking about why won't we see eventually amazing sleep darts in HGC? It's the multiple maps when we're talking about that environment. Because we can't play the same map every single game, we simply will not see that level of performance for years to come. And we're also talking about, putting this up against Dota the International, which has been going for, not Dota 2, but Dota in general, 12 years in its current form.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely right. Interesting hero. I wanna like her. I've been very bruised in my opinion of Ana this week, however. So, shall we talk about the other changes that came in this week that we haven't already discussed?
Yeah, and these aren't ones that we simply skipped last week. They're brand new.
Yes. So, a lot of changes with Mercenaries. Obviously, you've got Impaler and trooper camps, the siege mercenaries found on Volskaya and Battlefield of Eternity, the early game health has been slightly decreased, as well as the base damage and scaling values have been increased. So less value early on, ramps up a little quicker as the game moves on.
I'm very pleased with this, particularly because of the Infernal Shrine strategy where you would take the enemy side impalers and then give sight over the wall so they could access the nearby well with autos.
Yeah. And then Defender mercenaries can no longer be affected by displacement effects. On Hanamura, because I'm sure you were concerned, but more importantly, Volskaya Foundry mercenary item drops no longer require a short channel time to be picked up. We actually noticed this on the PTR last week, confirmed here. Support camps can no longer be captured with bribe. This is a big one. Even though we haven't been thinking about it for a while because Hanamura has been taken out of the rotation, but that was that was a big strategy point with Hanamura back when that was still in rotation, which was get bribe. Get bribe. Don't let them get all the bribe. If you can't get the bribe, ban the bribe.
I kind of just want whoever would get the banner down to get the item. This mad dash pickup, ETC, power slides in, steals the item thing. It's kind of silly.
That's interesting. Because what do you... I wonder if... It must be coded. I was going to say, I wonder if the game is coded to choose a winner when there's multiple allies on the pad. And obviously there must be because the banner comes down.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm with you. I'd like to see that as... If you channel... Because it's the same with mercenaries. If you finish channeling the spot, you get the thing.
Yeah.
Or you get the mercenaries. So why is it different like that? But
and I get, then they'd have to maybe trade it around because we want the heal item on our mid-ranger, not our front line or our extreme back line and pros. But we don't even swap and draft. So let's not even talk about that option.
Yeah, but anyway, I don't want to take away from how great of a change I think not letting support camps be bribed is. I feel like we're kind of, this is Christmas, we got a Sega, but we really wanted a Super Nintendo. That's how I feel right
sure.
now. Like, we're complaining about something awesome. Or saying it's not enough, it's basically. But yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. There were some changes of vehicles. All vehicles, so Dragon Knight, Garden Terror, the mech on Volskaya are now unstoppable. And then Dragon Knight specifically had its movement speed reduced and the starting health reduced. So not moving as
if it
quick.
can't be slowed down, they chose to slow it down.
Yeah, which makes sense. It seems good to me. I've had a couple
change I don't think we would have noticed for several months again.
Most likely, yeah, but it seems fine to me. I've already played quite a few Dragon Knights, and it's fine. It's marauding around. I still feel like I'm making good time around the map.
The big deal here is that there is a strategy if you get the very first Dragon Knight to go wall busting, a lot like what you do with the old Garden Terror. Bottom, mid, top. You don't want to go top because of the bridge, so you kind of do that one last. And you just destroy all the outer defensive so you can have access to that fort on your second Dragon Knight. This is a pretty big blow to that. Let's just skip the top. We'll do bottom, mid.
Yeah. There's some interesting bugs we should probably make folks aware of.
Spooky ones, too.
Yeah, and first up, the Z-Bodes, Toads of Hugeness, seem to be doing full damage despite their hope range.
Yeah, so they're hopping along.
Or hop range.
And the further they hop, the more damage they deal, up to 80%, I believe. Right now, they're doing that maximum damage in melee range.
Yeah, that's... Whew. Some painful
bug.
toads, yeah. Diablo's Devastating Charge seems to be malfunctioning in general.
So this would be the critical strike you do, hitting someone into a wall that does percent-based damage when Diablo's higher level.
Yeah, you still get the stun, though, right? I've been seeing
Yeah, you
plenty
still get stun. We're not shooting in random directions either, which is a huge update from previous Diablo bugs. But this is how you did 10% max health on a slam, 15 with the passive, and it sucks.
Yeah. Summons aren't aggroing camps, so things like Murky Eggs and Gazlo turrets, they're having some, a complete issue, sharing the load while trying to burn down camps.
Pretty casual if you wanted something to tank for a little bit while you stand back with your health. Those aren't tanking right now.
Speaking of Gazlowe turrets, they don't have their sight range anymore, or at the moment. It's got to be a bug. There's no way that this is a feature.
I hope not. Gazlowe's win rate is up because of Volskaya, because of Infernal Shrines, a favorable map pick for him. But yeah, I put one of these on the conveyor belt, and it went into darkness.
And then Rhaegar's Lunge. The range on it is just, it's borked. It's super low compared to what it used to be.
I think it's gone down to a range of 1. And these are the ones that I was able to experience and gather up. There seem to be a lot of bugs in this particular build.
It's funky. It's very funky. Well, before we move on to strategy and talk about Volskaya Foundry in a little more depth, let's thank our patrons, Kyle. We've got many folks over at patreon.com/ITN supporting this here very podcast. And as we've mentioned on all of the episodes since we launched it, this is the best way to support the show, to support Kyle, to support myself, as we do podcast for a living. So if you like the show, head on over there. Consider giving us whatever works for you. And if you can't afford it, don't worry. Internet access will always be free. So this week, wanted to thank Samuel W., Jim, that's it, no last name given, Scott H., Robert G., and Bill G. Thank you all so much for the support. And now, let's talk a little Volskaya.
Choose a talent.
Choose a talent.
Talent? Ah, that seems generous.
Yeah, no clue what that means.
I chose Gazlowe for a reason. So Volskaya is out, Kyle. I feel like I have bad luck with new battlegrounds when they come in. I feel like I barely see them for maybe the first 2 weeks that they've been added, but I've seen a decent amount of Volskaya this week.
I placed through 4 Haunted Mines games, and I didn't see a Volskaya.
Ugh.
They didn't increase the likelihood, nor did they give us a greatly reduced map pool. It's still just sort of thrown in there as though it was just one of the maps already.
Yes.
But there's some interesting things about Volskaya Foundry. One of the most is that nobody's interested, actually. And when you start looking at high-end streams, you're coming across a lot of people saying, boy, this map is bad. I hate this map, what have you. This is ultimately because the pros will not be playing Volskaya in 2017. They, at the start of their season, vote as to what the map pool is going to be, and they're very anxious to avoid Haunted Mines and Blackheart's Bay. So those are often removed, and the rest is what we're left with. They also want to avoid Warhead Junction, and there is some whispers on the wind that they like Volskaya better than Warhead Junction when we're filling out the 3-map pool, or the 3-lane pool, and they want to make sure it has as many 3-lane maps as possible, maybe outside of Braxis. So nobody's working on it in the pro environment. We're not getting sweet guides because of this. So we, the people, control Volskaya Foundry right now. So I'm eager to know everybody's sweet strats because we're in charge now.
Yeah, and my gut reaction is that I like Volskaya. Maybe it's, I don't know, I feel like I'm missing something. It doesn't seem that bad to me. Maybe I'm just happy it's not Hanamura. But
fair enough.
Also, Haunted Mines is back in the rotation, and I don't enjoy it. So I'm excited to see Volskaya instead of Haunted Mines when the image of the battleground comes up. Yeah, I don't. Is there any glaring issues that you have with the battleground?
With this battleground, those are a little unknown right now. I'm still figuring it out. I've played quite a few custom games on it. Certainly, I've felt the sting of poorly drafting, which is usually just like Sky Temple, not possessing enough, or Braxis even, not possessing enough body to occupy the point for an extended period of time, whether that comes from regeneration, whether that comes from just huge hit points, something cute like Rexar, not sure yet. With Braxis, you're very short-minded. You want to be able to get that first one, hold the second one, and take that to victory. So Varian, old Leoric, not so much anymore, but certainly Varian's a great example. Having to wait till 10 to be a full hero is extremely punishing on Braxis. Here on Volskaya, it's a lot more like Dragonshire. That very first one is not so great. and we can all kind of handle it. Plus, 2 people load inside of it, and since it's not so great, you're kind of just negating a person in a weird way in the early, weaker one. Might as well stay outside of it in some ways.
Right, just part of me wants just a pilot for the first one.
And that could be our eventual strategy, or maybe, for instance, I had a robot come down, a mech, and there was a barely alive Nova on my team standing next to it, and she hearthed. Why? Why hearthed? You could have gotten inside. There are opportunities that we might make actual tactical choices there.
Benefit of the doubt, new battleground. That's what I'll say.
Definitely. When you win, don't heart. This is kind of my overall strategy. Get an orb, keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, I'm seeing some folks in chat room saying it's simple. Not a lot of nuance to it, which I guess I can sort of understand. But I would also argue that we probably feel this way about any new battleground because we're unfamiliar with it. We haven't figured out the nuances. But I mean, it does kind of just force a dog pile, right?
It does. And there's a lot of buildings around these objectives, including the conveyor belts, that are there to mess it up from being a really boring square. Just like Overwatch uses levels to make things stop from being just a empty field where you're Battlefield 1942ing across the entire thing with a sniper. What this means from a strategy perspective is dividing already has become extremely strong. There's going to be 5 people on that pad. And you might be slower. You might need to regenerate depending on what happened in the game. There may be a lane that needs clearing. This thing goes for a really long time. And it's not like the Braxis boss where it gives you a little back. If you show up at 99% and it auto does its time to get on it, I don't play enough Overwatch. What's it called? Hot time? Hot potato?
I don't know.
Bonus time. At any rate. It goes into that regardless before it hits 100%. There's always a chance for you to get a toe on there and change it up. Winning Volskaya, to me, the strategy I've seen that's been very successful is about dividing. You're going to be going into a 5v5. So let's make a split. Leoric splits well because he can go through a bunch of people, become the focus of the back line while the front line gets destroyed. You can also do this with Malfurion roots, with a Kel'Thuzad Flame Strike, with a Jaina Blizzard, by putting out a circle effect that makes the back line go, oh, not me, and then the front line goes, oh, I want to avoid that too. And you can now start to isolate people out of this 5-man pile. Stukov as well. You can think about things like Tracer or Genji. That would cause maybe the tank, a good tank in this case, to report and to the back line to defend the enemy squishies who are being dove by this character, which opens up an opportunity for you to dive that out of position support now. You got to do something to stop a thorough 5-man from just getting it together.
The second you dig in, it can be hard for the opponent to unseat you.
And we're seeing things like high win rates on Probiuses, on Gazlos, exactly. Rexars, which is a cute one. Sylvanas, because of her usual accompany a vehicle powers. Nazebo. Samuro's actually an interesting one because of his gank ability. The lanes are really, really big. When you start thinking along that line too, big lanes, some people get removed. Diablo. Kel'Thuzad. People who simply don't do well if there's not a nearby building or a wall they can use.
Yeah, although there are a lot of I don't know what you would call them, collisionable terrain or impassable terrain, which doesn't help Kel'Thuzad out at all because you can't chain to them. But someone like Diablo, a lot of opportunities to get your stun on.
Definitely. Once we're to the objective, are you diving too deep? Were you able to make those ganks in the early game against a wall that allowed you to get that level lead for the first objective? That's where Diablo can kind of start to find his problems on these bigger lane maps. Sometimes you just win by picking somebody up, creating a body block, and everyone targets. That's more about your original positioning. And Tomb of the Spider Queen's a great Diablo map.
Yeah, absolutely. So what 6 strats have you seen? What can we actually learn here, Kyle?
Well, Tychus works for sure. The whole thing counts as a hero, so if you need to get stacks on things, wailing on the enemy mech is an absolutely fine thing to do. Using the conveyor belts to empower snags, or if you're a melee, taking that extra second to get on the correct conveyor belt and using it to stay connected. For instance, a Thrall who already has movement speed buff while in his Wind Fury can decimate if he's moving appropriately on top of a conveyor belt at the same time, because you're melee. Well, now you're like super sticky melee.
If they're on the treadmill with you, body block heaven.
That as well.
I don't think we mentioned why Tychus is so great. The bigger they are works against the mech, by the way.
Bigger they are in the rhythm, the minigun trait in general, all burns because it counts as a hero.
Which is
naturally on a big control point map, stealthies, just don't take them outside of Samuto. Samuto has that back of the line chaos kind of thing going on. Even stuff like Genji, Zeratul, Li Ming Chromie, Raynor, Illidan, Valera, people who are just a little body light are having problems on Volskaya.
It's that pad seems large, but the second you get in there, it feels like it could be 3 times the size that it is. I've been Genji specifically this week. I've been seeing just getting surprised.
Dehaka is actually performing really poorly here. The vent setup is pretty poor because we have all these sweet conveyor belts. Also, in an extended kind of hold the point style where he can't continually poke a foot into a bush like in Sky Temple, he just doesn't have all his advantages.
Oh, poor Dehaka. Everyone else gets to get on a treadmill and move quickly.
Bad for him.
Everyone else gets to move fast too. This is stupid.
I'm personally tickled about the map because anything that keeps you in motion is a Tyrande nerf. 3 stutter steps.
That's a very good point.
Muradin is doing really bad here, and that's probably the most surprising one to me. Chen is doing horribly too, but Chen stands still, and there hasn't been a meta where standing still has been okay for a very long time.
Yeah. The Muradin one specific. Why do you think it is with Muradin? You would think Thunderclap, great, cool. Everyone's standing on a pad. Thunderclap value. You can actually jump over all of those tiny little impassable pieces of terrain that make it awful to try and escape if you're on any other hero.
And it might be too big of an area. So simply that Thunderclap doesn't provide all the health back it does on Braxis.
Fair enough. What is your switching gears real quick, what's your opinion of the Merc camps on here? Because as Hanamura was leaving, we were sitting here kind of reflecting, being like, oh, you know what was one of the coolest things in Hanamura were the Merc camps. And now that we have gotten some of the Hanamura Merc camps on a more, would you say, traditional map where you can actually attack the core, I don't like the Hanamura Mercs anymore.
I think you're onto something there.
There are entire lanes where you never have to worry about mercenary pressure. There are mercenary camps there, but they give your whoever gets it an item that they have to be present to get value out of. They can't just send minions to do their bidding. Which
didn't matter on Hanamura because it was all about team fight and completing the objective turn-in.
It's not as clean of a narrative. There's an argument to be made that getting a fort down in Hanamura was still extremely important, but...
Sure, well, and Towers of Doom as well helps win the game, but without being able to go core, if we had, actual normal mercenaries instead of the sappers, Towers of Doom would feel pretty lame.
Yeah. So I don't know, that's kind of where I'm at. And I'm also drinking your Kool-Aid a bit from the very top of the show where you were saying mercenary stock is down.
Yes,
it's already on its
feel down.
It's already on its way out because of everyone's knowledge base of how important wave clear is. So now we have the latest battleground. Just straight up have half the map with non-lane pushing mercenaries.
And we also have Tyrande, Malfurion, Stukov. Our main support stays and even Rhaegar have become good at lane clear, whereas when we were in our Lili Uther phase, we were struggling. It's coming from a little bit of everywhere, including those quests I talked about earlier. And I agree with you. I think I can only, as a StarCraft player, call them Vikings. The weird Vikings in the top lane.
Viking-esque. Yeah, I've been calling them Reapers because when they start moving, they look like dudes in suits.
Okay. Either way, there is a future that includes people with guns who don't wear sleeves, and I have a big problem with it. It's the same. What was it? Jax? No, that was it was
That's
in Twisted
Mortal
Metal. There was a guy
Kombat.
whose arms were in the side of wheels. And there's people in tanks around you. You should calm down and put a shirt on. At the very least. I don't. You feel a bit exposed there. Maybe the Braxis core wouldn't go down so fast if the dude wasn't just sitting in a cage like an alien in the power lifter.
You have actually lost me. You have lost me with an alien reference.
Never mind that. Just don't expose yourself in technology. In a super suit, cover your whole body.
Okay, fair enough.
I like those things. I like those mercs because once they lock onto a building, they increase their range, and I think that's a very cool trait. And I like that it perhaps surprises people right now. It means they're getting things done for longer in some ways, whereas like the Hellions or Fire Bats. Yeah, Hellions, right? On Braxis, just kind of walk in there and get themselves killed all the time.
Yeah, exactly. They're Hellions. No, you're absolutely right. Now, can we get them in the bottom lanes? That would be lovely.
It's odd, the lane choice.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's something about it. I hadn't really thought about it. Compared to Hanamura, and I think something about Volskaya being more traditional makes the lack of lane pushing mercs just very noticeable to me. It makes the map seem less alive. Like there's less of a flow to everything. There are certain mercenary camps that when they are taken, you just feel no need at all to react. And I don't like that.
You know, when we combine the fact that the layout of the conveyor belts allows you to get from bottom to top a lot faster, and top's the only lane with the mercs that push, we just negated our own mercs. They'll always get cleared because it's the easiest lane to clear.
I didn't even think about that. You're
like
right.
Mercs that go down the middle. The reason why bruiser camps go down middle lanes is because they have the most health. If you put a light health or mercenaries down those lanes, they're always going to get cleared out because it's the most trafficked lane.
Yep. All right. It's proven Volskaya Foundry hates mercenaries and is trying to make us forget about them. Shifting gears again. Let's talk about comp. What kind of comp do we want to be making to win that point, Kyle? We've talked about what doesn't work, and we've talked about cute things like Probius and Gazlo for obvious reasons. What's less obvious?
The toughest part is not getting over cute, right? Having one of those cute things is really valuable. And the fact that you have a robot that has two spots, one spot that perhaps can empower a hero to do more damage than they would do before, is very cool. This means you can take those more extreme tanks like ETC, Johanna, who don't normally bring the numbers, in a dream scenario, Chen as well. Or you can take your super squish weirdo like Probius and load him up inside that Novi talked about. That's where my head really is. So we're still not sure if double tank is the place, because you still got to hold them off the pad while surviving. That's the difference. Braxis, Muradin, awesome, because he just holds it out. Here, if they get on the pad, they're ruining your points now. So we have to push them back off. And that's why I say, make sure maybe we do something cute, but we got to have that divide. We got to cut them up some way, whether that's Kel'Thuzad, Jaina, Nazebo, Zombie Wall, just something that says, get off, and this is how you stay off.
I like that. Have you tried Tacit Iron Force Wall?
I don't like Force Wall because it's not radial. It's kind of old school. I'm having a very hard time casting it. I play quite a bit of Tacit nowadays, but it's always Archon.
Fair enough.
In this idea, you could think that, Raynor, right? But Raynor just doesn't have his time in the sun right now. This is why the pressure things like Arthas and Samuro are more powerful, or those area effects that say, don't ever put your foot here in the first place. You can't compete with Arthas in your face. You can't stand still versus Samuro.
Yeah. All right. So we talked about what works. We've talked a little bit about what isn't working. We mentioned Dahakamerd and Chen all suffering. But what are some of the other surprising heroes that, at least at the moment, with the statistics available to us, are not doing that well?
Chromie, probably the biggest one.
That seems...
Any of your squishy spellcasters that don't create a zone aren't doing well.
Yeah, that seems nuts to me. Because, again, the pad is larger, but it's still a quartered off section of the map where targets will be standing, so you would think Chromie would rock here, but we're not seeing it.
Dedicated Merkers are doing poorly as well. We kind of just talked about how poor Merc camps are doing.
Womp womp.
Brightwing is doing well. And in general, second support is doing well here too. So that's where the big puzzle is. Amongst the second support, perhaps the thought of double tank, and then one cute thing, where's the damage? And you can either get double tank or you get double support right now, because we're still going to need point control and then the deeps.
Gotcha. Well, awesome. Well, I hope folks had their notepad out, and if not, we have many bullet lists to take a look at in the show notes. If you never go looking up, go to amove.tv/ITN, look for the episode 185 post, and at the very bottom, you will see a Google Docs link with everything that we just talked about on this episode. Well, let's bring it home, Kyle. Let's take a few emails from itncast@gmail.com.
Darkness stopped calling.
Does anyone else hear that buzzing?
Hold on. Darkness just texted me.
Akira writes in, starting us off this week, and says, I've started to take more frequent breaks from Hero League and play quick match games with heroes I'm not familiar with. It's been a great choice learning the nuances of them, as Kyle would say. I strongly recommend it. I feel it prevents me from getting tilted over Hero League losses, and I learn new things at the same time. I randomly selected Artanis and went ham. Is it just me, or does Artanis have one of the most forgiving talent trees in the game? I consider myself a competent MOBA player with over 5,000 games, and I also played the original Dota back in the day. I feel confident in browsing through an unfamiliar talent tree and identifying what Dunk Train calls trap talents. As I was playing Artanis, I noticed myself hesitating at every level, thinking, that's pretty good. Wait, that's good too. Do you feel the same way, or was that just the devil's lettuce? I've never heard that phrase in my entire life. Finally, what other heroes do you think have the most forgiving/unforgiving talent trees?
I think Artanis is very much of this new thought philosophy that we're seeing Johanna, Leoric move into. And I'm very pleased. And even Kel'Thuzad's a little combo-y, but that's just his nature. So you want, as you start to build the build, you want certain things so you can put them with other things. Ragnaros, I think, is on like the very edge of Blizzard evolving their understanding, because Ragnaros, you pick one talent at level 1, and if you don't kind of match the pictures along the way, it can feel like you messed up.
Yeah. My vote, by the way, for forgiving talent tree, Arthas. There are games where I just, with the exception of pretty much never ever take Rhyme at level 1, I've used all of these talents multiple times in one case or another. And even if you kind of screw up some type of synergy, I think it's fine. Like, you're going to get value out of almost every talent at every level on Arthas.
On my Hero League screen right now, I'm a Malfurion main, because that's my highest win rate. And I really like his talent tree. I think very much the same style. You don't need to match the pictures. A full Moonfire build is a lot of fun, but extremely mana expensive. So unless I'm on, a farm map of some kind or with that second support, I just kind of pick all the pieces I want that make the total picture in the end.
Yeah. No, I think that's fun. And I'm glad that Akira is heeding our advice and getting some value out of it. Second email today comes to us from Steven from Scottsdale, who says, Dear Into the Nexus crew, with Anna coming into the Nexus this week, the changes to the current supports and the most recent HGC games, it seems, we are entering into a double support meta. The problem I see with this is that in Hero League games, you will usually, at most, get one support. This fact worries me, as less heroes will be able to reliably solo support. Do you worry about this? And how do you think this push towards double support will affect the Hero League meta? Keep up the great work. Sincerely, Stephen from Scottsdale.
Yes. He's not wrong. It does feel like we're really restricting the number of people who can solo support. And when you deal with like the downtime of something like Morales, the aim needed to actually succeed with something like Ariel, there's not a lot of easy options. And that's why I fall into Malfurion too, because I can simply heal 2 people on the team. And I find that very empowering. I love tanking. When I coach, I love that. That's my favorite thing too, coaches, tanks, and supports, because I feel like you can have one of the biggest impacts playing those roles by your own decisions. Decisions being the key word there. By own skills, I think you should murder everyone if you think you're better than everyone, and you should pursue that line of work if that suits you. And that's great for climbing too. The decision-making, the knowledge you use to execute a carry-level tank or a carry-level support is really neat.
Did you want to do your visual, or was that just a tap of the XSplit?
No, this is, I mean, not anything, and of course we're a podcast here, so that's not going to help the radio. This is merely for me to kind of get my thoughts, and I use this custom-built XSplit overlay as sort of a doodle box. Believe me, if I had a full-blown war table with a pushy stick, like Nazi war rooms always had them in the old movies, I'd be using that instead. I have little action figures of everybody. Tier shelves that I'd put them on.
Oh my god, tier shelves. Yeah, there are some Heroes action figures, but not all of them. Yeah, I don't know, but I mean, it kind of depends. I think right now, Steve. To me, I'm looking at Steven and I'm thinking he's having the same kind of knee-jerk reaction that I'm having to Ana at the moment. You're just seeing people pick Ana, and the rest of your team just go, I don't know what to do. I'm not taking a second support. Why'd you do this to us? And you just go in with Ana as the solo support, and you have a bad time. But without knowing Steven's experiences in the past week, I don't know if that's accurate or not. But I feel I'm projecting this week's experience for me onto Steven's email here.
Well, and he's talking very much that if HEC goes this way too, what's the impact we have at home? Yeah. And they're really complicated equations. Kharazim is about responsiveness, about being able to add that level of burst damage, burst being a lot of auto attacks really quickly here, to a dive. What happens when we mix Zarya with that? How does Zarya interact with Lucio? It's almost easier to just think of everything in terms of flat. You got heals over time and instant heals, and maybe you have a heal over time that gives an instant heal at the end. But either way, you have to imagine, does my healing output catch or recover? And based on the team the enemy makes, we may need to make a recover catch and a catch recover. For instance, if you do a Tassadar, well, that's great catch. Now you have this increased health pool for when the bombs go flying in and people come out the other side surviving. Now is your opportunity to recover. And how are you going to do that? Well, that could be the Tassadar plus the Malfurion. That's pretty darn complicated. And we're only thinking about what the enemy team has. What if we just took Tassadar Malfurion, but we've got a Leoric main tank because this is Hero League, and a Tracer? That's not a bad idea. You got a Tassadar, you got a Malfurion, and a Tracer. Cool. But because we added the Leoric to it, everybody bails on the poor I'm not talking from experience. I had a great week. Everyone bails on poor Malfurion because Leoric ghosts away, Tassadar goes invisible in space, and Tracer darts. And sure, there's a Li Ming too who teleports over a wall, and now he's exposed. Did we mess up the draft? Maybe. There's a lot of opportunities to mess it up. Whereas if you go double tank in Hero League, you can have the same sort of thought process. Who's the catch? Who's the recover? You have the Dahaka go in first and absorb all the big cooldowns. Ooh, spend his essence. Jump underground. Yes.
So now
and then the Arthas moves in.
Okay. So to put it into the flavor of the week of Ana, and to also re-invoke something that you said earlier in the game or in the episode, where you said that you should be, if you are taking Ana, take her as a Tyrande replace instead of Tyrande, and know why you're doing that, basically to negate heals with your grenade. I wouldn't say that Tyrande is either a catch or a recover. Would you say Ana is one of the either as well?
I would say Ana is definitely on the recover side of things when it comes to healing. Ultimately, much like Tyrande, you're negating something. Tyrande negates damage. Ana negates healing. So things have gotten kind of weird there.
Gotcha. So
they're weird in the first place. And honestly, if Ana could heal herself, I can darn assure you that no one would be healing anybody else because that's all Tyrande doing. I'm not mad at them. I believe in them. I think Tyrande's a great. When I'm talking about like, what are you going to be uber aggressive on? How are you going to carry yourself from a league that you don't think you belong in? I'm talking about things like Tyrande and Leoric and these madmen who can go in there and get stuff done and still get out at the end of the day. And Tyrande at level 10 can do that. And I expect her to use all her heals on only herself to accomplish that task.
All good points. All right. Well, Akira, thank you for your email. Stephen from Scottsdale, thank you for your email. And everyone listening, if you would like to write in, itncast@gmail.com is the place to do that. That's going to wrap it up for this week's episode. Thanks again to our patrons supporting us over at patreon.com/ITN. And if you would like to support this here podcast, that is the best way to do so. Thank you to our producers, Declan H., Cheesy Bob, and Mythdoll. You guys are awesome. You can pick up an Into the Nexus t-shirt over at shirts.amove.tv. Go check them out. Follow the show on Twitter at ITNcast. And we got to thank Gorath for our intro music and BrianGriffithMusic.com for our outro music. Now, before we go, Kyle, where can everyone find the other things that you are doing on the internet? Some heroes related, some not.
Yeah, I'm adding a stream that is non-heroes related. In the month of October, we're going to be doing a little special over at twitch.tv/Kyle Fergusson. I'm going to be playing Divinity 2. It's a nice little sort of in-between because I still don't like playing Dungeons and Dragons on the internet. I got to have people in the real room. But Divinity 2 is the most tabletop D&D thing I've ever found. And it's fully co-op. So I'm going to be getting together with John Jagger, with Kristen Ashton, and with Jeff from Heroes Forge. And we're going to play through it on co-op on Sundays at 2 p.m. Pacific time on that twitch.tv/Kyle Fergusson. By the way, I see people in the chat saying they'd like me to own a push table with little pushy sticks. So support the show over at patreon.com/ITN if you want that to be a reality.
Is that a Patreon call? Are we putting that in writing?
It could happen.
Listen, you'll put it into one of those really nice gaming tables for when you do have D&D sessions at your own home, and in the meantime, you'll push action figures around on it.
Or, they just make like little square tanks or, blocks with a bunch of little ridges on them that look like little, Star Wars gum poppers. So we'll figure it out. Little pictures on discs. Shuffleboard.
Yeah. I'm with JM Tibbles in the chat room. He says that he wants you to have a full Mad Money set complete with a soundboard.
Oh, dude, Mad Meta. I love doing that show. Mercenaries are out, explosions and on all my screens, and that'd be good stuff.
Is it weird that I'd rather do it in the style of Pee-wee's Playhouse?
It would work, right? And then we have pro players coming by and oh, yeah, they're here.
Dunk train in a Cowboy Curtis costume is all I can think of right now.
If I did do the war table, though, believe me, I'd have the sticks with the little fake tree Warhammer stuff on top and castles built, a Dragon Knight puppet that we'd walk down the lane.
Nice. Well, folks, check that out. Twitch.tv/Kyle Fergusson. I am on Twitter at Garrett Art if you want to follow me, and all of the other podcasts I do, including this one, can be found at amove.tv. I'd recommend going and checking out Embrace the Spoilers, where Jocelyn and I have finally started posting our Indiana Jones episodes, because Jocelyn is now seeing the original Indiana Jones trilogy for the first time, and it has been a real treat to make these things, because it's not every day that you get to listen to someone talk about a movie you've seen more times than you've spent hours with your family. See that movie for the first time. So go check that out. Embrace the Spoilers wherever podcasts can be found. That's going to wrap it up for this episode. Thank you all for tuning in. We'll be back next week, hopefully with Jeff Kanata, if scheduling permits. And until then, good luck and have fun.
Take care.